Hello everybody, welcome to the Ultimate Scouting Show. If you haven't already, please consider donating to Damar Hamlin's charity. I will leave the link in the bio below. Let's get into the video. Thanks so much for joining me today. We are looking at the 2023 NFL Draft, doing another mock draft here. Going to be doing a live mock draft here where you can see all of my thoughts, reactions as I make the picks here. Let's dive into pick number 1. We've got the Houston Texans on the clock. I think this could be an interesting one because, I do think that there is a world in which CJ Stroud is in this mix, or Will Levis is in this mix, but ultimately I do think Bryce Young is still the first quarterback off the board. I think the Texans do take a quarterback, and so Bryce Young is going to be the first pick here in the draft. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears on the clock. I do think that this comes down to either Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, or a trade back. I think Will Anderson makes the most sense. You need a pass rush. This team has been the worst pass rushing team in the entire NFL. They may have one of the worst front sevens I have seen in a long time. You need to add to that. Will Anderson is about as good as it gets when it comes to talent in the front seven. So I think that pick makes a lot of sense for the Bears there. The next pick, we have the Seattle Seahawks on the clock. I do think that they could take CJ Stroud or Will Levis and have them sit behind Geno Smith for a year or two. But I do think Jalen Carter is ultimately going to be the selection here. I just think that they need to add to the front seven. They need to help out that defense, and Jalen Carter is the best pick for that moving forward. Next, we have the Arizona Cardinals on the clock. This should be an interesting one. I think they could go in a variety of different directions. There's probably going to be a new regime making this selection, so it may very much, change where they attack. But I think for right now, I'm going to have them selecting Brian Brzee, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, who's the number 1 overall prospect in his recruiting class. Definitely somebody with high athletic upside, just needs to continue to develop into that dominant player. I think he could do that for the Cardinals. After they lose J.J. Watt, that'd be a big addition there. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts on the clock. I think they are gunning for a quarterback. Whether that's Will Levis, whether that's CJ Stroud, that discussion will certainly be up for debate. But I think that they take Will Levis. If Ballard is still the one there making the selection, he has proven that he likes traitsy guys. Will Levis has the mobility. He has the arm strength. He played in the SEC. He played in a pro-style offense. These are things that, are very appealing to NFL GMs. He has his rough spots, don't get me wrong, but I definitely think that NFL teams are going to like what they see when it comes to Will Levis. Next, we have the Detroit Lions on the clock. This is an interesting one. They could go in some different ways here, but I think they take Myles Murphy, pair him with Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Aleem McNeil on that defensive front there, and all of a sudden that becomes a really nice front seven and a strength of this team rather than a weakness as they all continue to develop as young players together. Number 7, we have the Atlanta Falcons on the clock. I'm going to have them select Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. I think that they could consider a quarterback here, but I think they ultimately give Desmond Ridder a chance, and you need to add to that pass rush somebody with high upside like Tyree Wilson. You took D'Angelo Malone and Arnold Ebiketie last year. They've done some nice things at moments during this year, but you need somebody with that alpha 1 upside. Tyree Wilson is that guy, and he's high risk, high reward type of player, but somebody that I think the Falcons could certainly use. Next, we have the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock, and pretty much all signs indicate they're moving on from Derek Carr, which means that I think quarterback is very much in play here. I'm going to have them selecting CJ Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State. He looked amazing on New Year's Eve, really showed he could produce outside of the structure of the offense, which is really my number 1 concern with CJ Stroud. I thought he looked really, really good. I do think that he needs a good supporting cast around him to be successful. If they keep Devontae Adams, that certainly helps there. But I think this is a very interesting landing spot for CJ Stroud, and I could certainly see it happening. At number 9, we have the Carolina Panthers on the clock. Obviously, first thought is quarterback, but no quarterbacks are really available besides Anthony Richardson, which is just a little too rich for him right now at 9 overall. I think they take a corner perhaps to go across from J.C. Horn. He has had a fantastic season, but you could really use somebody with some high upside on the opposite side there. I think Christian Gonzalez makes a lot of sense. He's 6'2", probably going to run in the mid 4.3s. Absolute blazer. He's had some nice ball production at Oregon as well. So definitely somebody I could see shooting up draft boards, and although you prefer to get your franchise quarterback of the future here, he's a nice pick in the top 10 there. At number 9, we have the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock here. This is an interesting one. They could go with an edge rusher, you could go with an interior defensive lineman, you could go with a corner. I think all of those are very much possibilities, but I'm gonna have them selecting Keely Ringo, the corner out of Georgia. He is somebody else that is tall, fast, great athletic upside. He's covered some of the best wide receivers in all of college football. Just gives you a lot of versatility, whether you want to move on from James Bradbury, since he is, on a 1-year deal. You just give you a lot of flexibility in that back end, and you add somebody with really high upside that maybe doesn't have to start right away, which is always a good thing in the NFL. At number 11, we have the Tennessee Titans on the clock. This is a very easy pick for me. I have them selecting Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle or interior offensive lineman out of Northwestern. You can plug him in pretty much anywhere across the offensive line. The Titans really need to add to that. He fits their identity perfectly. He's a road grader. He can protect whoever is back there at quarterback next season. Just makes so much sense for the Titans in this pick here for me. Next, we have the Houston Texans on the clock. This one, I think they could go with wide receiver to pair with their new quarterback. You could go with an edge rusher, perhaps. Somebody I really like is Jared Verse, the edge rusher out of Florida State. He has done some really nice things this year. He was a transfer from Albany College, which, is just an awesome story. I think he is going to shoot up draft boards as well. Jared Verse, the pick for the Texans there at number 12. At number 13, you have the New York Jets on the clock. They need an offensive lineman. Dwayne Brown, George Fant aren't getting any younger. They haven't been great this year either. Mekhi Becton, you just can't rely on him. So I'm going to have them select Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. This just makes a lot of sense. Protect whatever veteran quarterback they're going to bring in. I definitely think they go the veteran route. So that just makes a lot of sense there. Washington Commanders on the clock. I definitely think that they would love to get themselves a quarterback. Anthony Richardson could be an option here, and I'm quite tempted by that for them. And I think I'm going to go that route, actually. I really like what they can do all across the board. Anthony Richardson is a high upside player. You really need to add a quarterback that, can be that playmaker for you. Right now, Heineke has been all right. He's just a little bit of a turnover prone type of player. Wentz is not going to be the guy moving forward either. I think you could have Richardson sit behind, a veteran quarterback like either of those guys and develop and really kind of give you that high upside option moving forward. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is an interesting one as well. I think that they go with an offensive tackle here. Derek Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. He's definitely somebody that has faced some really good competition this year at Georgia in the SEC. Definitely done some great things for them. He just kind of provides a nice high upside kind of guy for the Steelers that really need to protect Pickett and surround him with as much talent as possible. I think this pick makes a ton of sense for them. At number 16, we have the Green Bay Packers on the clock. This is one fit that I have kind of really enjoyed looking at is Michael Mayer going to the Packers here. They have Christian Watson, they have Romeo Doubs on the outsides now. I think they need somebody to really be a big target in the middle of the field. Mayer was one of the best tight ends in the entire nation this year. He was awesome. He just kind of provides that reliable, good catch radius, underneath type of player that can, be a reliable option for you. I think that's something that Rodgers would really value. And Robert Tonyan doesn't really do it for me right now. I think adding somebody like Michael Mayer would make a ton of sense for the Packers here. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions on the clock. We gave them Myles Murphy earlier on here. Now I think they could add to the secondary. Joey Porter Jr. is still on the board here, and I think that fit makes a lot of sense. Pair him with Jeff Okudah, who had a really nice start to the year, kind of has fallen off a little bit. Just give another high upside option in the secondary there. I think Porter Jr. makes a lot of sense. If you add him and Myles Murphy to your defense, you're certainly in a lot better shape moving forward. So I think that would be a good pick for the Lions there. At number 18, you have the Seattle Seahawks on the clock. We had them selecting Jalen Carter earlier on. I think that they could potentially add to the front seven again, and I think they do with Nolan Smith. He was the number 1 recruit in his recruiting class as well. He's long, he's lanky, and he's relatively small, but he's a really good run defender. And I think, just continuing to add to that front seven would be really beneficial. You get Jalen Carter, you get Nolan Smith, you got Boye Mafe, you've got Poona Ford. Some nice pieces all around that defense there, and I think that could be a really good thing for the Seahawks to add moving forward. At number 19, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock. Usually I'd have them taking a wide receiver, but since they traded for Calvin Ridley, I really don't think that they need to do that. I don't think you need to force a pick here. Somebody I think is a very good player that they could use is Cam Smith, the corner out of South Carolina. You have some decent players in that secondary, but you really need somebody that can match up against number 1 guys. Cam Smith is a physical guy. He lined up in man-to-man coverage pretty much all year in college against some of the best wide receivers in the country in the SEC. So I definitely think that that could be a good pick for the Jaguars. Somebody with high upside, somebody that you could probably plug and play right away and be a good fit for the Jaguars in that scheme there. Next up at number 20, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock here. This is a tough one because, they have a lot of needs. You could certainly see them going quarterback. I don't think Tom Brady is going to be there next season. So this is tough, but I do think that they could take an edge rusher, add to that room there. And I think BJ Ojulari would be a nice fit there. He's a speed rusher, certainly somebody that is kind of a pass rush specialist at this point, but could develop further and just be somebody that could get after opposing quarterbacks. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has been just all right this year. Obviously, you lose Shaq Barrett for the year as well. So just getting somebody that can come in and be a pass rush specialist, even if those guys come back and develop nicely, would be a big add for the Buccaneers. At number 21, we have the New England Patriots on the clock. You got to have a wide receiver off the board. Finally, I think it's going to be Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver out of TCU. He's big. He kind of has that jump ball type frame. He's also fast, got a good catch radius. So I think he could certainly be a big play weapon for the Patriots, something that they desperately need to add some explosiveness to that offense. And I think that fit makes tons of sense. I do think wide receivers could fall a little bit further than people realize in this draft. There's just not one that is really super dominant. And so I think they could fall to pick number 21 here before we get a wide receiver off the board. I think Quentin Johnston is going to be the first one off the board, though. At number 22, we have the New York Giants on the clock. Just had a wide receiver go. I think we have another one go here. Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC. They need to add to that wide receiver room. They need to expand the passing attack desperately. Isaiah Hodgins has emerged as a nice player, but you need to continue to add to that wide receiver room. I think Jordan Addison makes a ton of sense. He's a nice player that, has some deep threat ability, but he's really kind of a great route runner, good at creating separation, and that's something that the Giants certainly need in that wide receiver room right now. At number 23, we have the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. I think, this is another team that their offseason kind of depends a lot on what their quarterback does in Lamar Jackson. I certainly think he'll be back next year, but whether that's on a franchise tag, whether he, is happy about playing on that franchise tag is still up for debate. So I think a lot could change this offseason. I think you could potentially move on from Greg Roman as well. I think they maybe add another wide receiver here, actually. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. He just fits what they do very well. They use kind of the middle of the field with Mark Andrews, their slot receivers, very well. Smith-Njigba would fit perfectly into that slot receiver role, be a separator, a natural, being able to get open, create opportunities within the soft spots in the zone. So definitely somebody that I think would be a great fit in this Ravens offense. At number 24, we have the Chargers on the clock here. I would normally have them taking a wide receiver, but I don't think that there's really, anybody that really sticks out. Jalen Hyatt is certainly an option. I could see them going that route, but with 3 wide receivers off the board in a row, I think they go in a different direction. I think they take Siaki Ika, the defensive tackle out of Baylor. This is a giant nose tackle type of guy. He's got some pass rush upside, really. He can push the pocket, but he would really help to solidify that run defense. That has been a massive problem for the Chargers for a long time. I think this is a much needed selection there and would be a big fit for the Chargers at this point. Next up at pick number 25, we have the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock here. I'm going to go with kind of a unique player that hasn't been mocked in a lot of first rounds this year, but I think he's certainly going to climb into that conversation, is Drew Sanders, the linebacker / edge rusher out of Arkansas. He is kind of this guy that lines up all over the front seven. Think like a Micah Parsons here. He's a poor man's Micah Parsons in a lot of ways. He started as an edge rusher, kind of transitioned to a linebacker this year. He just can do it all. Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson both have contracts upcoming. Not sure if they'll be able to keep both of them. They certainly could use another pass rusher, somebody that can be really effective on the blitz. I think Sanders makes a lot of sense. It's kind of an unconventional pick, but it kind of fills 2 different roles at once for the Bengals. I think he could be a great special teamer, and right now the Bengals are just kind of looking for playmakers. They don't have a ton of holes on their roster. You could add a tackle, you could add a corner. There's some nice players on both of those spots there, but I want to introduce you guys to a player that I think is going to be a really fun one in the NFL in Drew Sanders. I think he could be an interesting fit for the Cincinnati Bengals there. At number 26, we have the Minnesota Vikings on the clock here. I think that, they could add to the defensive line here. You could add to the secondary, but I am actually going to have them take a wide receiver here, Jalen Hyatt. He is rated really low on PFF's board for whatever reason. He is not going to go this low. He's an absolute deep threat speed demon. I think if you had Justin Jefferson Adam Thielen and Jalen Hyatt all together. Hyatt would kind of eventually be the Thielen replacement, but adding to that would just create such an explosive, fun offense for the Minnesota Vikings. He would be that deep threat that, I think they may be missing a little bit. Jefferson is a great player. He's a great route runner, but, I think you could really add somebody that takes the top off the defense like Jalen Hyatt, and that would just add another dimension to this offense. You get Hawkinson, Hyatt, Thielen, Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. This offense would be absolutely unstoppable, and it would be really fun to watch for the Vikings there. At number 27, we have the Dallas Cowboys on the clock here. I think they take Trenton Simpson, the linebacker, out of Clemson. He can just kind of do it all. He's a good cover player. He's somebody that I think, is a very good just inline linebacker as well. He would just be a nice versatile piece for this Dallas defense who very clearly values versatility. I think he'd be a really nice fit in that front seven. And the linebacker position has been all right for the Cowboys, but it hasn't been a strength. I think Simpson would help solidify that definitely for the Cowboys there. At number 28, we have the Denver Broncos on the clock. This was originally the San Francisco 49ers pick. I think they take Anton Harrison, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Harrison has really good footwork. He's very nimble on his feet. He's a good pass protector. You need to try to build something around Russell Wilson. Whatever head coach comes in has to kind of try to get the most out of him because you really cannot get out of his contract at all. I think Harrison would be a nice tackle prospect that you could, put at that right tackle spot. And I think Anton Harrison would be a very nice player to help unlock this offense and especially this passing game, which desperately needs help. At number 29, we have the Buffalo Bills on the clock here. I think they take Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. He's a nice, versatile defensive back that can play corner, he can play safety, he can play nickel. Just so many different options for him and a defense that, will be facing Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert all on a regular basis in these AFC playoffs. I think adding somebody that can be versatile, can be a weapon on that defensive side of the ball would be very good for the Buffalo Bills and would be a nice pick for them there. At number 30, this is a fun one. I have them selecting Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas. Just put out a scouting report on Bijan Robinson. Please go ahead, check that out down below after this video ends. But Bijan is one of the best running back prospects I've seen in a very long time. Just can do so many different things. This would be absolutely unfair for the Chiefs to select him there, but he would be a perfect fit, would really allow them to do a lot of different things. He's a great pass catcher as well. So I just think that would be an awesome pick for the Chiefs there. At number 31, the last pick of the first round, we have the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock. I gave them Keely Ringo earlier on in the draft here. I think they could take an edge rusher. They tend to like trench picks here, so I certainly could see them going in a variety of different directions here. Looking at this list, I could see them taking Gervin Dexter, perhaps Lucas Van Ness just declared for this draft as well. A lot of different options, but ultimately, I'm going to have them select Andre Carter II. He is somebody that just has a massive frame. He's somebody that is really, really fun to watch. He wasn't used in a very traditional way at Army, but he has the traits that you absolutely look for. And for an Eagles team that doesn't have to play him right away, he would be able to play behind a lot of really good players in Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, and a lot of good players like that. I think he would be an awesome addition to this team here. That's going to do it for this 2023 NFL mock draft. Please let me know down below what you think. Did I pick a good player for your team? Was it a good scheme fit? Was it a team need? Let me know down below. Please, if you like NFL draft content, all things NFL, hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that like button as well. Helps me out, pushes this video out to other NFL draft fans just like you. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye.